I was sitting down writing and I got a call and it was my dad. He was like, I just want to let you know I was diagnosed with lung cancer. Told my wife, and her reaction was, you need to go down to Florida. I was like, why? I can't leave you with the kids while you're about to go undergo treatment again. I can't do that. She says, I'll be fine. You need to be with your dad. You know what him and his wife are going to go through because we just did this.
That is out of control in like the best way possible. Your wife pushed you to do something that you weren't even going to do, and it turned out to be a blessing.
That night we told our kids, mommy's going to die. This is it. This is the end for her. We cried together as a family. The next second, we turned on stand-up comedy and we all laughed together.
I love that.
There's always a gift in the pain.
I would love for you to kind of tap us off in regards to your experience of grief and what that means to you and all that you've been through.
Yeah, it's a big question. So I'll kind of stay a little bit high level and then we can dig in. So grief for me has mostly been about this loss of identity and this loss of a future and trying to rediscover that. So it started for me, I have watched double digits people die somewhere around there, close family and friends. I had a dad who wasn't around, left when I was 3. He passed away. But the biggest loss was to my wife and high school sweetheart. After 17 years of being together, she passed away in 2020. And being there for her last moments and kind of her transition through her living with cancer, incurable cancer, it really just threw me into this world of what's happening, what's going on, and who am I? It was always Ariana and CJ, and now it just became CJ. And what did that mean? What did it mean to be a solo dad to 3 children? And, where is the mental health aspect versus the grief? Because something that I've been pretty open about is I've struggled with my mental health since I could really remember earliest memories. So it's teasing apart what is grief? How is it impacting my mental health? How is it exacerbating what I've already had? And then how do I move through that?
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said is so interesting to me because it's just the tip of the iceberg and the multi-layers when it comes to these experiences. And again, these are your experiences. We could find some camaraderie in some of the death that we've all shared in some capacity, but they're your unique experiences. And I had a conversation with a comedian recently that lost his father, but he was abandoned by his father when he was younger. And so, I want to tap into the different experiences that you've had, but that one is always interesting because you're losing someone that you didn't have the perfect relationship with. A lot of those stories that you see in the storybook and movies, or online, it's just, you lose someone that you truly loved, had a great relationship with, but that's not always the case. And that it makes it so complicated. So I want to get into either one you're more comfortable diving into,
all
but it is that identity loss. It is that loss of a future. It's loss of your habits that I've mentioned a million times as day-to-day things and just everything you're used to. But in regards to losing your father that you didn't have a relationship with, correct me if I'm wrong, is it grieving the future or him not being here, or is it grieving while he was alive and what you didn't have? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. It makes perfect sense. So this is a very interesting story. And this is not how I thought the end of the story would be. So my dad left when I was, I think, like 3, somewhere around there. He was still local. And then he moved, I'm in New York. He moved to Florida. And the majority of my life, especially in childhood, we'd see him once in a great while. But he was never a dad. And then I got married and I had children. And very few times he would see the kids. Like very few, like maybe once when they were a baby. And he was like, well, I don't want it. I'm not a grandpa. And throughout like my teens and my 20s, I'm going to be 40 next week, actually. I had this longing in me to be like, I want to know who my dad is. I want to know who shares this genetic material. Who's the one that throughout my whole life, my mom and my sister are like, oh my gosh, that's so much like your dad. You do this thing just like your dad. I'm like, who the fuck is my dad? And it broke me. And yes, there was this point where I got to where I was like, I'm done trying. I am done trying to reach out to him. I'm done trying to have my dad. I had a really great stepfather, but I wanted to know who my dad was. And I gave up and kind of moved on with my life. And then I'll never forget. So we were in California, my wife and I. We had moved out there. I got recruited to a company out there. And that's when she ended up getting her terminal diagnosis. So we moved back to New York because she wanted to be here for our kids to have stability when she died. And I was kind of like, I have been sharing publicly about this process of being a caregiver and going through this process of watching my wife die. And I remember I was sitting down writing and I got a call. My wife had her second reoccurrence at this time. And I got a call and it was my dad. And he was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know I was diagnosed with lung cancer." And, I didn't say much. There's not much you can say to people like that. This fucking sucks. And then I hung up the phone. I went in the kitchen and I told my wife, and her reaction was, "You need to go down to Florida. You have to go down." I was like, "Why?" There's nothing there for me. Like, it's not going to change anything. I can't leave you with the kids while you're about to go undergo treatment again. I can't fucking do that. And everything that my wife is, she says, "I'll be fine. Go. You need to be with your dad. You know what him and his wife are going to go through because we just did this." So I did. I flew down and his wife picked me up, brought me to his house, and I was working remotely from his home office. This was down in Florida. A couple hours go by, and all of a sudden I hear his red truck screeching up the driveway. And he runs through the door, and all I hear is, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" And now I'm like, my heart's pounding. I'm like shaking. I'm like starting to shake just telling this. And I hear him running down the hallway. He bursts through the door. All I could do was stand up because I didn't know what to expect. He ran over to me, grabbed me, and did not let go. And he was like, "I can't believe you came. I can get through this now because you're here. I can't believe you came." And we spent the next week doing everything that a father and a son would do. Like, it was like my child was back and he had his dad back. And we went through all his appointments. We got his treatment plan set up. And the night before I was leaving, we stayed up till all hours of the night. And I was like, "It's do or die." And I said, "Dad, why did you leave? Why did you leave us?" And I gave him an opportunity to tell his side of the story. I moved over from the couch I was sitting on to his, and we held each other and we just cried and we asked each other to forgive each other. And it was like I had my dad back for 1 year before he died. He died almost exactly a year before my wife. And I mean, he would call me and just be on FaceTime and watch me work. And I had my dad for a year before he died. It was wild.
No, that is out of control in like the best way possible.
Yeah.
That's incredibly beautiful that your wife pushed
Yeah.
you to do something that you weren't even going to do, and it turned out to be a blessing.
Yep.
And then you're balancing him and your wife,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're also balancing the idea that you had that for a year, which it seems like you're looking at it from a way like that. That's dope. I'm grateful for that. But is there any other? Does that you still have to peel off shit from that in regards to the idea? Like, now we do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like now we're gonna do father son time, and now you're you know what I mean? So like, what is grappling with that? Let alone the fact that your wife is dying.
Yeah. There was a lot of anger. I still think there's that element. It's interesting. You asked like my experience with grief. I think as I've been learning, so my wife died in 2020, so I'm 4 years out from that, and I'm 5 years out from my dad.
Mm.
And just recently, and I'm talking like maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I started a new therapist. So I've been in therapy for 16 years. I love it. Last year, I had 3 therapists doing all these different modalities. I tried every type of esoteric treatment. I'm obsessed with it. And I remember coming into session, I was like, "I think I'm depressed." And she was like, "Yeah." She's like, "That
I'm
is
laughing
one
at
of,"
you, by the way.
yeah,
The way you
it's
said
funny,
it.
right? It's meant to be funny because it's like, I went 4 years thinking I'm just anxious and I'm sad, And she was like, "No, you're clinically depressed." And because I've had depression before, I've had the numbness, I've had the suicidal ideations, like I've been through that. But this time, like, I'm alone and I have to get up every day to help my kids to keep moving forward. I have to work, I have to provide, I have to do all those things, and I have to live. And to me, I was like, well, I'm just experiencing grief. But what was happening is that sadness that I had, that anxiety that I was focused on, it was a mask for the anger. And she challenged me. She's like, I think you're just angry. And I had to come to these conclusions of like, my wife abandoned me. She didn't want to. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to have cancer. But to my nervous system, she left me. She abandoned me. My dad abandoned me. And then I got him back. And then he abandoned me again. Like, so there is a lot of anger there that I'm just now starting to learn. How do I let this out in a way that's healthy, but honors it? Especially like, I think people think of anger, especially as a male, and you think destruction and, things that are just very negative. But I think there's a healthy, positive way that we can deal with this.
And what is that to you?
Yeah, I think it would be different for everybody, but I think there's, I think the very surface stuff, moving your body in whatever way is that's enjoyable to you. So I've done tons of different sports, but the consistent for me has been lifting heavy. It has been the thing that has helped me with my mental health the most. And I was actually challenged by my therapist. She said, next time you go do anything that involves moving your body, she's like, I want you to go until you're literally like at the brink of yourself and just come back and tell me what happens. So I did this. I did this with lifting, and I told myself, I was like, okay, I'm here, I'm alone. I have weights in my house, and I was like, what happens if I just let myself go and feel that anger? And I just went into it, and then I just started screaming, that like very guttural, primal screaming and just letting it out. I did this. I went to a cycle class, and I'm just in there and I'm just crying and like acknowledging the anger that I feel that my wife left me. I think there's creativity has helped me to kind of explore that and to let that channel that anger. I think there are healthy ways without exploding on people. It could just be like, go up against the wall and push that fucking wall as hard as you can. It's okay.
I love that. I wonder if it's sometimes I look at those micro releases that are not
Mm,
that micro to be honest, but it's like a releasing of a balloon, like a little
yeah.
air at a time. And I wonder if you do it, you
Mm,
continually do that. Eventually, it's kind of like
yeah.
maybe it's not completely gone, but you do find a little bit of comedy and acknowledgement of what it is you're feeling. And to me, again, it
Yeah.
seems like it's that acknowledgement of what it is. But
Hmm.
does it have any? Is there an intellectual or logical deduction there in regards to even reframing the perspective of
Mm,
abandonment when it's, obviously, clearly the way you're saying, she
yeah.
didn't abandon you like your dad. Like that what
That's
your dad
right.
did is abandonment, intentionalized, and
Exactly.
then two different things, but still under the umbrella because you experienced that abandonment. It seems
Hmm.
like, oh, all my loved ones are just leaving me.
Yeah.
So is there some kind of unraveling with that notion?
Yes. So this has been quite a pivotal time for me. So you're talking about like this idea of abandonment, and then you said something that really kind of hit home for me, and that's all my loved ones have abandoned me. And it's been this really interesting experience where I am discovering that like actual effect of abandonment on my life. And I've had these thought processes my whole life. I've had these ruminations. I've had these experiences in my mind that as I'm going through this process, thinking that, well, this is how a lot of people think, and realizing that it's not. So after 16 years of being in therapy, I finally have found the core of what's happening. And I just found out that I was diagnosed with OCD, specifically pure OCD, which is more of a mental thing and mental
Pure is it
compulsions.
pure O?
Pure O is kind of the nomenclature. So it's more of like compulsion. So, you know, I think like in Hollywood, we think of like OCD as like somebody locking the door like 10 times before, but there's
Mm,
so much more to OCD than that. So for me, there's a lot of these mental compulsions. So I get the obsessiveness, but then I go through these mental ruminations and processes to try to help that, because there's fear that bad things are going to happen unless I do these things.
got it. Got it. Got it.
And that, to tie back to this idea that all my loved ones have left me, realizing how my OCD has latched onto that. And it has now created these thought patterns, especially in friendships and romantic relationships, where I'm now deathly afraid that they're going to leave. But the actions that I have, the thoughts that I have, don't necessarily present that that's the root of the cause. But now seeing that framed in that way, it's kind of bringing this relief. So, yes, there is this mental, logical component to it, but our bodies are the things that need to experience our emotions. Our bodies are the things that need to heal, right? So that's where like somatic therapy has been so helpful for me. And it's letting our bodies, and when we say our bodies, or when I say my body, it's really our nervous system. It's letting our nervous system experience all of that and kind of flush it out in ways that, could be personalized to each of us. So it's really body, but there is that logic that I think starts the spark of like, oh,
Mm.
fuck. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. But now I have to let logic go because my mind will just sit on it and I'll apply logic to it all day. But that's not going to
Mhm.
do anything for me. So,
Yeah, it seems like everything is just very psychosomatic. It's just both.
yeah,
It's a part the seesaw between both. And sometimes you can't tell where it starts, but to me, it always feels like it starts here because that's
yeah,
conceptualized, and then your body kind of
yeah,
takes whatever your interpretation is there. Maybe, but then again, there's subconscious that who the hell knows. It's just such a it's just a clusterfuck of realization. Is so fascinating. Those things are coming down. It's, like, it's still unraveling. You're
mm,
4 years, 5 years down the line in regards to
right.
your wife and your father, and it's just so interesting. It is that continual process, but it seems like you're in motion in a sense of
Mm,
being willing to interpret, being willing to feel, being willing to try different things, being
yeah,
willing to move and take these actionable steps with maybe an uncertainty if it's going to help, but
yeah,
the willingness to try these things, because I do feel like we do got to kind of figure out what works for us because it is a unique experience.
yeah,
And if we're just stagnant and not
yep,
if we're just stagnant, at some point, I've said this a million times, there is a level of, okay, I got to take responsibility for where
yeah,
I'm at right now. I mean, you could take the mentality, this happened to me, and be stuck where you are. Sure, maybe you got to do that for a while. Like, I'm not forcing anyone to do anything, but at
yeah,
the same time, like I say this repetitively because I think it comes to a point where, okay, we gotta get on our ass, get to go off our ass a little bit.
yeah, yep,
And it's much easier said than done, like everything is. I want to kind of go back and forth a little bit because again, I didn't tap into the experience of you have kids,
I do, yeah.
and your wife and their mother is dying, so she's terminal.
Mhm,
So what is that anticipatory grief and that facing it? Like,
yeah,
how did you manage that for
mhm,
this is gonna be a loaded question, but for
yeah,
yourself, for your wife, and for
yeah.
your kids, how do you jumble all that knowing what's coming?
It's another big question. And yeah, anticipatory grief is a mind fuck. So
Yeah.
she was diagnosed stage 4 right away. She was diagnosed stage 4 on my 30th birthday. And that radically changed my world. So to set it up, I moved my family. I have 3 children. My youngest was 3 months old, I think. We moved out to California and I was working in my dream job. And our marriage was at its peak. We worked and we worked and we worked and we had a beautiful marriage. And my kids were thriving. And then this hit. And it's interesting because I moved out first to go set up the house and find a place for us to live. And I was there for 6 weeks. And almost immediately moving out to California, I'd have this reoccurring nightmare where I'm in this mansion and my family's with me, my wife and my kids. And there was one room that I had to protect them from. I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't let my family in there. I would wake up and I'm like, holy fuck, we're gonna have an amazing 2 years and something horrible is gonna happen to my family. I can't tell you why this happened. I can't tell you what it was, but this happened for 2 years. I would have this reoccurring nightmare. And 2 years later, my 30th birthday, my wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. At that point, everything started to crumble around me. But I went into action mode. I need to figure out how to take care of my wife. I need to figure out how to handle my kids. And I need to figure out how to keep this job so that way I can afford for them. And that process lasted for 5.5 years. And through that, it was basically dying to myself almost to an unhealthy level and trying to figure out how do I manage a beautiful marriage that is constantly changing. So every 3 months, she was getting scans. So every 3 months, we had this potential for our life to change again. Right. So it's like she was in treatment, but when you take chemo for 5.5 years, that alters who you are.
Mm.
And our marriage slowly died. So it's like really like trivial example, sort of money. We both wanted to save towards retirement. She's dying now, and she's like, I don't give a shit about retirement. I don't give a shit about that. I need to experience my life now. So we went and we would travel. So we'd have to navigate that all over again. How do we handle money? Intimacy starts to go away as she gets sicker. How do you handle that? How do you redefine what that means? How do you develop closeness in the midst of all of this? So as this was happening, it was this daily waking up and realizing my wife's going to die. My wife's going to die. Is this the last time that we're going to have dinner together as the family? Is this like the last time that she's going to be able to see her kids? Because one of the progressions was her going blind. And it was like this mind fog of 5.5 years of just getting through it. And then 2019, November hits, and we were sitting at the table for Thanksgiving, and we found out that it spread from her bones to her liver. Once it hits soft tissue, it gets pretty bad pretty quick. And then that's when things started to get even more serious. And yeah, and in 2020, in the beginning, we ended up finding out that it went from just her bones and her liver to her bones, liver, brain, bowels, lungs, and one other spot. She had 17 spots in her brain. And they found this out kind of like randomly on one of the scans. They managed to nick her brain in the scan, and they're like, oh no, there's something there. We need to do more scans. So at this point, we knew that she didn't have much longer. So we'd have to sit down and talk to our kids and tell them. So they were very young at this time, 12 and under. And we're like, mommy is not going to live much longer. We're always honest with them. We always were upfront with what was going on as best as they can understand, and tell them, hey, we're going to try to get mommy through this last holiday season. Fortunately, she passed away in September and didn't get through there. But yeah, it was really that dying to self and just trying to manage. But the problem is like you don't really have an instruction manual on how to get through this. And you don't understand, like, how do you take care of yourself while you know that your wife only has so much time left? So it became very easy for me to be like, well, fuck what I need. I want to give you as much as you can. But then that butts up against just your natural human instincts of like, now she's dead. And I think of every situation of like, what an asshole. Why did I say that to her? Why did I do that? Why wasn't I better? And you start beating yourself up and you die. Like I said, my loss of identity, the day she died, I died. I am somebody wholly new. And then I'll stop here. But 6 months after she died, in March again, near my 35th birthday, my son, my middle child, my oldest boy, ended up having a tumor in his neck. So now I'm back at the hospital. I'm back where I just took his mom, and we're going through this process. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but basically, we went through a month of testing, and we were in the doctor's office, and he had one doctor came in, went back out, got two doctors, went back out, three doctors, and they're talking about cancer now. And I got in the car, and he says to me, Daddy, do I have cancer? And I'm like, what am I supposed to say to my son? What can I possibly, I can't lie to him. And I was like, I don't know. I think it might be. It seems like it. He's okay now. He had a rare nerve tumor. He was one of five people that have it. They had to take his entire nerve out. He's okay now. But that, like, there's nothing you can do to prepare for that, where I was in grief, but then I had this on top of it. I literally felt like I was dying every single day. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't function. But you just do, because you have no other choice.
That's it. You just do. But again, you could have these conversations and you could listen to other people's stories, but it's just until the shit happens to you, and you don't know what to do. And that's why. But then it makes it, it's much easier for you to look back and tear yourself up to pieces. I can think of a million things right now that I'm like, oh my God, why did I say that? But then it's like, oh no, when you're in this fight or flight mode, it could be, I think that adrenaline could be really good because it puts us in a
Mhm.
place to really take action. But then we're a little off kilt. Like shit's not right up
Yeah.
here for us to completely
Yep.
react calmly and understand, oh, I know what to do right now. No. But then, yeah, that is hard. That's another thing of grappling with yourself, looking back, like,
Mm.
could have done this, could have done that. Then you're living with that.
Yep.
It's just like a never ending fucking cycle of
Yeah.
like this weird emotional carousel of, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And it's nice to see you still going forward. I'm sure your
Mm.
kids have a big part of that,
Yeah.
of a reason why. But I've seen so many times the people, even like in the comment section
Yeah.
when a certain post is, oh, I have no reason to be here. Life
Yeah.
is this, life is that. And it's hard to find a why.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a why to keep going.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know what that answer is for people that maybe don't have kids or don't have family
Mm.
to latch onto. What have you found as your why to even keep going? Is there anything
Yeah.
more than beyond your kids, which is enough
Yeah.
of a reason?
Yeah. There is. And I think that's well said, right? Like I've seen that a lot too, where you're mentioning like people are like, I just don't want to be here. I've tried to find communities, grief communities. I've tried to find young widows communities, and they largely turn out to be, I hate to use the overloaded term, but they turn out to be pretty toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I want to move forward. I want to have a life, and there was no future when my wife died. But I want to have a future because if I'm going to be here for another 30 years, I need something. I want to like not waste this life. So my why personally for me, the experience of becoming CJ from CJ and Ariana was the most isolating thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I have found this is true for all of us who have gone through these intense bouts of grief. I would probably guess that you felt that way when your dad passed. So as soon as that happened, this seedling of an idea and a mission for my life started to get planted and watered. And over the next couple of years, it turned into I don't want any griever to be alone in their journey. We need to start creating spaces, tools, education. We need to do things to help people find their way through grief, to know that some of this shit is normal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's this thing called widow's fire. If you're not a widow or you haven't been exposed to that community, it may sound weird, but as soon as your person dies, you are the horniest you have ever been in your life, and all you want to do is get off.
No
And it's
shit.
this, yeah, it's this weird thing. It's short lived or long lived, depending on the person, and you can't wrap your mind around how could I possibly want to be with somebody else right now when I just lost my person. And I think there's psychological components to that, but if you don't know about that, how awful is it for you to go through that and to be like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
So my why became, what can I do to do that? And over 2 years I figured it out, and I had a really amazing career in tech. I worked in Silicon Valley. I left it and I started up some companies, fashion line, and all of it is built to try to help our community grieve, have education, have safe spaces, and to move forward and to have a life again. And that now is this huge, massive, critical why that I think about 24 hours a day, that I am applying everything that I can possibly do to help and grow this company and change the conversation on grief and to bring it out of the shadows. But that just happens to be my why.
I love that, man. Again, it's just it's transforming the pain in some
Yeah,
capacity. Not to say that pain doesn't continue to be there. I
right.
think it's just it does change. Like
Yeah,
people say, oh, I'm always, and it's when you said toxic. Sometimes the way I see, I give people grace because
yeah.
I don't know where they're at. So I'm just because someone says something that I don't resonate with in general, I'm like, okay, I just don't know where they're at. So I
Mhm.
don't agree with that, but maybe they're at a certain phase where that's just where they're at, and they're going to work through that. And maybe in 5, 10 years, they'll be different. But I don't know, when certain experiences happen to me, this is just where I'm at, or I've been.
Mhm.
Like when my mom almost died in 2023, it was obviously
Mm.
horrible, but I also didn't think, oh my God, my life's over after this. I'm never going to be happy again. It's going to be a challenge. But the idea of saying I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to do that, to me is very dangerous. And it's going to feel like that. And I think that's parlays with the idea of what you're talking about, of even like the widow's fire. I never even knew about that. And that could be a very complicated feeling when you're in the middle of it. When you're in the middle of something, it's like, oh, this is all it is. This is the outcome. This is how it's going to be, because this is what I feel now. But by exposing people to those thoughts, like you just exposed me to that, or exposing other people that also feel like this is going to be, this is it, this is how it goes. I wonder if it's just like an acknowledgement of being exposed to the masses and community is just a good it's a good flip to, I guess, feeling isolated, right? Like being exposed to other people that may feel similar or a little further down the line, or have experienced grief, or different potentially modalities for grief. It just opens up a world of possibility, and I think gives people hope.
And that's, for me, I've realized that story is the most powerful thing we have as humans. It's how we build empathy. It's how we build relationship. It's how we grow to understand. And I see, like, I get so, like, when I get most discouraged, I get outward, and I look at people like you and other folks who are doing these beautiful things for our community. And I'm like, I have to keep going. I have to keep going. And, like, this all started with, so I worked at Facebook. That was where I was when I was in California, or Meta now, but it was Facebook at the time. And that was when my wife got diagnosed. And, Silicon Valley is known for these amazing leave policies and all these benefits. There was nothing for medical leave. They were like, you got to go take, the California FMLA. And I looked into it and I was like, I can't afford my rent. So now I have to make a choice. I have to either go to work, or I have to be home to care for my wife and my kids. And I reached out to Sheryl Sandberg, who was the COO at the time, and I shared my story. That's all I did. I said, this is what's happening. This is where we're lacking as a company, and we need to change this. And a few weeks later, 6 weeks, whatever it was, there was a whole policy created for the entire company that still is in existence today. And that's when I was like, holy shit, story can move mountains, and it just, like, it blows me away. But I'm curious, if you mentioned your mom and that experience, do you feel like having the experience when you were younger, losing your dad, kind of prepared you, or shifted and changed the experience of having that scare with your mom?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think it's been a perfect blend of that experience and all this work that I've been doing in regards to this podcast, because it's kind of partially felt like therapy for me in many ways.
Yes.
And I've just been exposed to it so much. Like, again, stories. All these podcasts, for the most part, are stories, and it's had a lasting impact to me. But yeah, there's so many correlations to the experience that overlapped. And granted, that was when I was 12, and now I'm older. But a big thing for me is one moment that I realized was, I remember I was flying to Europe, and we didn't have Wi-Fi in the plane. So this was all happening when I was in the air. And once I turned on my phone after a great flight, I met this, like, actor that happened to sit next to me. He was one of my favorite movies. We started getting drunk. We're drinking. It's a great flight. At least it's amazing. Then what the fuck? Here's the rug. I'm gonna pull it. No, one more whiskey, then Dave, you're fucked. And so I turn my phone on, and I get those messages that I knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. I was like, this isn't good. And my sister told me what happened. Mom was like, mom's in cardiac arrest. Her heart stopped. She made it to the hospital, but she's bleeding too. We're not sure what's going to happen. You got to come home. But the whole point of me getting to this point was, I remember just sitting there, innate shock, of course, but that shock for me dissipated, because based on what happened, again, me personally, and the stories I've heard, I have this mentality of, oh no, this is what happens. This stuff happens, and it can happen to me, not in a morbid way. If anything, you can either go fearful, or you can go gratitude. And of course, that fear is that I think about it for a second. I'm like, no, like this is just a reminder for me to be present. But based on the experience, the way my dad in particular is specific to my experience, it's like, okay, a plane flew into my dad's building and 3,000 people died. That's ridiculous. So I think in a young brain, it's like, oh, this can happen. And not only can it happen, it's not as outside of a headline, it happened to us. So this can happen. So I think from a long time, it's helped me stay calmer in certain situations, just
Oh,
realizing, oh, this life is absurd. This life is ridiculous. And this can absolutely happen. There's no entitlement to me that I'm supposed to have my mom until she's 90. There's no entitlement that I'm supposed to have my
mm,
dad beyond 12. It doesn't mean I'm going to have my sister. There's no supposed to. To me, there's
yeah,
just no supposed to. It's I hope, and we're going to do our best to do this, but there's just no supposed to. So in a very micro version of how it applied, that helped me stay way more level-headed and present and
mm,
calm, and to know throughout moments to allow myself to feel it, to be strong in certain moments. But if I have to take a second to step aside and
yeah,
feel it and allow it out, I'm going to do that.
yeah,
It did prep me for this. And so clearly my sisters did too. We talked about this. We felt if we didn't have that experience and plenty of other experiences beyond that, but
yeah,
we were able to flow so smoothly because we've kind of
mm,
been here before.
yeah,
But even then, we still had no idea. We're like, I don't know. Is this normal? Like I've never been in ICU. My mom, for now, she's coming out of it. No memory. Dude, she thought her parents were still alive. She thought my dad was still
mm,
alive. And that was a new experience. I'm like,
right,
okay, I've had 175 episodes. No one told me shit about this. So like,
right,
I don't, there is always newness
yes,
in everything,
yeah,
but it was just a clusterfuck of,
yep,
I think it still just becomes okay. It's more like okay,
yeah,
that's there. Now
hmm,
what? It's kind of like this there, now what? And a balance of being present. And yes, all these experiences that I've had from my dad to then prep me for this
yeah,
and prep my sisters for this to a certain extent.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like we said, you don't know what to do when you're in it. So
yep,
it's like a preparation, but not a full preparedness at all.
yeah,
Like that's never
yeah,
going to happen. But yeah, if I didn't have those certain experiences, it would be a totally different ballgame. And if my dad was still around, that's a whole nother clusterfuck. I never experienced anything like this.
yeah,
I don't know what to do. You get rocked. It's a stocking from Tyson, and all of a sudden you're on your back and you see stars. And I don't know what to do, and you're trying to
yep,
recalibrate, and it's messy. And back to
mm,
you, you were handling one after the other, after the other, after
hmm,
the other, and then it goes back to that paradigm of this is what the why? Like when
yeah,
you started, do you ever ask that existential question, or is that even
yeah,
worth it to you?
yeah. It comes and goes. It's been in phases. So throughout the time where my wife was living with cancer, we came to the conclusion that there's 7.2 billion people on the earth and this happens all the time. We're not special. It's just what's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. It fucking sucks,
Yeah,
but
sucks.
it's just what happens. And that's kind of the approach we took. Now, I do recognize that in terms of a shitty situation, my wife was incredible. And I have story after story after story of how she was. But just the fact that she would acknowledge it and we were allowed to laugh and use her cancer as humor as a family. I mean, that night we told our kids, Mommy's going to die. This is it. This is the end for her. We cried together as a family. We held each other. The next second, we turned on stand-up comedy and we all laughed together.
I love that.
And that's like how we've handled it. And that's how we've handled um, you know, post her dying. I mean, my kids and I, our first photo shoot, I got a 6-foot billboard or a 6-foot cardboard cutout of my wife, and we did a photo shoot together. That's the thing that People magazine picked up. And like, that's just how we've handled it.
That's a great.
So I think like, being able to have that from my wife has been so helpful. And I recognize that I can, because a lot of men, speaking in a heterosexual relationship with a wife with cancer, I've been in groups and I've seen where men are like, my wife won't even admit that she's dying, and I'm like, how could you go through life with that? Where it's like now you're battling all of this and you can't even like talk about that she's dying. So that was kind of largely what happened. And then my son gets sick, and then all this stuff starts happening. And I'm like, I don't like, I know that I can't expect anything. Like you said, you can't really expect, we're not entitled to these things to happen. But there are moments in life where I'm like, enough's a fucking enough.
For real.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Can we not do this now? Like, can I get a break? Um, and those moments are short lived, being relatively speaking. It could be a day, it could be 2 months. And I come out of it and I always look back and we have hindsight and I'm like, oh shit, that gave me this that I have now. And I'm always careful to say this because If somebody told me this in my early grief, I would punch them in the face. There's a gift in the pain. There's always a gift in the pain. That doesn't mean that we don't feel the pain. It doesn't mean we would rather have the gift than to have our loved one back or whatever it is that we lost and we're going through. But there always is something there if we're willing to go through it, right? So, you know, when people talk about healing and they talk about growing, what's left out of that conversation is the excruciating pain of going through that. Because let me tell you, all this work that I've done, and I'm still at the beginning, it hurts, like physically hurts to heal and to let yourself feel the enormity of your loss. But your ability, right? So, like, I think you mentioned too, it's like our grief never goes away. It's always there. It's our ability to encompass it that grows, that allows us to handle that grief and then eventually see that gift.
Yeah, it's what do we do with it?
Yeah.
You can't control the events that happen to you, but we can control how we kind of define it or turn it into. And I think what you said, I couldn't agree more on what you said about the gifts, like, because there's so much gold that comes from it, but there's a time and a place for that. It's not so much.
That's right.
At this point in my life, I'm like, my mom was in the ICU. I was like, oh, I wonder what good stuff's going to come from this in 6 months.
Yeah, that's right.
While she's struggling to breathe on a breathing tube. I'm like, no, it's like, there's certain moments, but I think it's also, it's not like to me, it's not like a seeking or to find the gift. Sometimes I think it's like an allowing.
Yeah.
It's just an allowing for it to be revealed. It's kind of like finding, I always say, I think I was even writing this the other day. It's like finding $100 on the floor. It's kind of just like allowing life to happen. Then all of a sudden you stumbled across $100 bill out of nowhere when you least expect it. It's like, oh. But there is a time and place for it. Yeah. If someone's, again, in this scenario that I just mentioned, like you're in it, maybe not at the right time. But it does reveal it's crazy. And it's like I call my grief receipt. Like, if I had a receipt, I would return all my lessons to have my dad back. Like, no shit, everyone would. Unless, depends, I guess, on the relationship, but it's but this you can't. There's no receipt. The receipt's ripped up. This isn't Costco. Like, you're not going to have it on the way out. And it's just we have to make the best of it. But then again, some people are like, why do I have to? Like, you're right, you don't have to, but what the hell? I believe you should, and I believe that humans have this crazy capacity to persevere, and it's just hard to see sometimes. We're driving through the grief. It's like a grief fog. You're driving through the fog, and all you can see is 10 feet ahead of you, and that's all you're doing. But at some point, it does clear up.
Yes.
It can clear up. And maybe it's clear for a little bit, then it's foggy again. But it's going to clear up, and we're all going to the same destination. And I just believe through stories like yours and this amazing perspective that you have, it's just possible. And it's that's why the power of stories, go a very long way. And I couldn't agree more. And I think this journey that you've been on is just, it's profound. And I'm sure it's a battle every day in many capacities, but I couldn't agree more with this stuff. Excuse me, I got like 2 frogs in my throat. Couldn't agree more with the things you're saying. I'm very much aligned, even though we've had different experiences.
Yeah. I think there's definitely that common experience in grief, even though it's so individualized, which is this weird, like, mind fuck of like, how is this possible? But yeah, it's there, and I love that. I love the grief receipt, and I agree. It's like you can't look for the gift, right? Like, that's so on point. And as you grow that capacity, like you said, the $100 will appear, but the inverse of that grief and that container that we build to hold our capacity, the inverse of that is love, and we get to experience that much greater love and joy and abundance in our life.
And it's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's partially a choice. Actually, I think not only think it's partially, it becomes 100%. A choice. It's just people. It's hard to. You can't really gracefully deliver that message to some people.
That's right.
Sometimes you can't. It's just, I can't say this to this person right now. It's just not the right time.
No, they just need to be validated. Because like, why would it's like to make the choice to grow that container, to make the choice to handle your grief means more pain. So like, we just went through pain. Why do we want more? Right? Like, we want to get out of it. So yeah, like, you're right. It's like at different stages. And like you said, like, sometimes the fog comes back. Like, I liken it to, we all get put on this road of glass shards, and we could see people up ahead of us that are still walking, and there's benches along the way. And in the beginning, your feet are fresh and they're just getting all these shards, and it hurts and it fucking kills. And you got to sit down, and then you keep going. But over time, your feet callous. But there's still shards in there that have like calloused over. and you step wrong and you feel it and you're like, fuck, I got to sit down again. I got to deal with this. I got to feel this. And so it's just different stages require different things, and it's cyclical sometimes.
Yeah, it's cyclical, and it's fascinating to me just because I don't know, maybe I'm a sick son of a bitch, but it's like everyone is so surprised. I don't, outside of grief, just in general, there's this weird societal thing where it's like we're surprised that we're gonna die.
Yeah.
It's like we have this, we're supposed to live 90 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Some people live 90 years and probably have not been great people. Maybe they should.
Yeah.
And then maybe some people that die young, they were only here for 25 years, like big artists that impacted the world within those 25 years. So sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe the quality over the quantity really does hold more power sometimes. But I understand it's hard to grapple with that because I don't want my mom to go anywhere. I don't want my sister, God forbid, like God forbid, that is, if there's a hierarchy, that one is probably the worst. But it's I don't know, there's just this shock value. And again, you said how many people go through cancer. It's not to mitigate or minimize anything by any means. By any means.
That's right.
But it's just like there is a reality thing. There is an objectivity to the way I look at it sometimes. I'm like, how much time do we see it on the news? It's just detached from us. And once it happens to us, like, wait, what? This can happen? It's like you just saw a news article the other day about so-and-so. It's like, yes, this happens. And again, it doesn't make it easier, but I think that partial acceptance before any of this happens helps a little bit, just a little bit. And I don't even know where I was going with that.
That's okay. Yeah.
Sometimes I go on these rants. I'm like, oh shit, where was I? I forgot there's a mic in front of me. We're just talking right now. But yeah, dude, I appreciate you taking I don't know if there's anything else that you feel like you just, wanted to expand on or anything you want to get off your chest. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah.
And one thing, side note, you're Italian?
I am 100%. Yes, sir.
I figured that we got 2 O's at the end of our last names.
That's right.
Vowels, so I think I figured I'd bring it up at some point. That's pretty cool. Yeah. You said New York. Where are you from originally? Where were you born?
I'm in Rochester. Yeah.
Rochester. Okay, I was born in Staten Island, raised in Jersey. All my family's from Jersey, so it's good to see another fellow American.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually getting my citizenship right now. I'm in the process.
Dude, I guess I missed it because my grandmother, from grief to citizenship, we'll call this podcast. But my grandmother got naturalized, I guess, 2 years before my mom was born. So that means I don't qualify.
No, if she was here, you can still qualify through your grandma, I think, because now there's a new law. So I'm doing this where I have to go through my grandparents, my maternal side of my grandma. They take it to court and then they argue the case, because a lot of times the women would come in and they would only be naturalized through the marriage. So then you can still argue like, well, then they never got rid of their Italian citizenship. But like you and I, we're the last generation to get it. So I want to restore it for my kids.
Because I've reached out to a couple of places. One place they don't qualify, but then another one. But another one said I did, and then they haven't responded to me. So I've reached out to them. I'm curious what are you using a lawyer or using a service?
I am now. I've tried years and years to find people. I had one lawyer. They didn't do shit. So I found this place, and I can send you all the details after. But I found a place.
I need to bite your style there.
Yeah. No, you're good. And they handle everything for you. So they're just like, go do this, go do this, go do this, fill out this paperwork. And they handle the courts, everything. So I'll definitely send you the info.
Yeah, let me know. It's funny you said that because I remember I've been trying to figure it out. And I was trying to get my whole family. You might as well do it if you can. But it's my grandmother. She's not around anymore. But again, this person said since my mom was born in 1957 and she got naturalized in 1955, they're like, oh, like your mom's supposed to be born and then it would work. But I don't know. You give me some hope now. So I want to make that. I wanted to get that going. It'd be amazing to be an Italian citizen.
Same.
But anyway, back to English and what we're talking about. If there's anything else you want to get off your chest, I appreciate you sharing this story and being so cool about it, especially the dark humor aspect. Like the humor has been such a. It's been such a mechanism for me, not even a defense mechanism. It's been a healing mechanism. So I love hearing that story and how you guys got picked up a little bit. So, dude, thank you for being here. And again, millionth time, feel free to drop the mic on them if you want.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the conversation. It's always good. So encouraged. I just want to thank you again for everything you're doing for our community, sharing these stories, getting them out there, bringing grief out of the shadows. I think That's it. Like, we need to continue to talk about this. We need to continue to normalize it because we're all going to go through it. At some point in our lives, we will be hit by this. Um, and there's no comparison. We don't need to compare. Like, people come up, well, they'll talk to me, this and I'm sad and this and that happened and I'm just frustrated. But I can't even do that. Your wife died. I can't talk to you. Like, you can't, don't do that. Like that, there's no comparison and we don't need to compare. We feel pain and that's the human condition. So let's all talk about our pain and let's all hold each other in our stories and in our spaces and those that are around us. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Just acknowledge, validate, build empathy, and know that we're all on this journey and we're all trying to figure this shit out.
Amen, dude. I'm going to say not much more after that, except thank you for that. That was profound. And it's amazing to follow you on this journey that, is going to continue on for the rest of our days in many ways.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you for those words. Thank you for sharing your story and being so open with it. I know you're already helping people with it without this podcast. So I'm glad my audience, who may not know who you are, got a chance to listen to you. And I will, as usual, guys, I'll attach his socials and anything else that he wants me to plug in so you can find CJ. And thank you for listening. Thank you, brother. I will definitely stay connected. And until next time, guys, see you on the next episode of Dead Talks. Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.